Hello team, and welcome to the final episode for Q3 of 2025. It's recap time again, where I'm in the host seat alone, ready to navigate solo across the world, reconnecting one last time this quarter with all of our gracious guests. And by now, hopefully you're familiar with the approach. We chunk our episodes into 4 groups from across this quarter, clusters of 3 guests, that means, with the exception of this quarter, where we had 13 weeks, which means we have a baker's dozen, 13 guests. And therefore our last group is going to consist of 4 guests, not 3. And thanks as always to the brilliance of our marketing team, we're going to be able to incorporate each of the promotional intros to save you listening to my wonderfully crafted radio voice the entire time. I know I say it every time, but it doesn't change. So without further ado, let's jump into welcoming our first 3 guests for the quarter: Therese Miclot, Charles Newcomb, and Julie Holunga. Incredible trio that got us underway back in July 2025. So let's trip back to the beginning of, and I think it was episode 171, and the chat took us to Indianapolis. And Therese is a leadership and facilitation consultant, and for the past 2 decades, she's been helping people and organizations to succeed by developing individuals into competent and compassionate leaders. And having drawn, or been drawn, I guess you would say, to the intersection between business and psychology, Therese has discovered her calling. And she did it really early. At the age of 15, she came across some career pamphlets while working at a library. And that's where her interest crystallized. And what happened was she then witnessed her single parent mum work at jobs with bad supervisors. And this affected not only her and those that she loved, but it motivated Therese to break the cycle by committing to a career of developing effective, supportive bosses in service of those with less power. I would love to be in an environment where we all had that as our passion and our mission. So fast forward to today, as a leadership development consultant, Therese is sharing her passions for leading and facilitating through one-to-one coaching, workshops, development, delivery, and then keynote speaking. And recently she released a book that she co-authored, which is titled The Facilitator Advantage: How to Drive Impact, Build Relationships, and Lead with Influence. Take a listen to the intro to learn more. And then if you are so inclined, rewatch the entire video for a full recap. Excuse me, I was just reflecting on some of the more challenging events that I've facilitated. One of the most challenging that I've heard from people that I work with is the starting moment. How to successfully get whether it's a meeting, whether it's a workshop, whether it's a full-blown event, how to get that starting momentum so that people engage from the start. Any tips or any suggestions on how you approach that?
I do. And actually, it starts before you walk in the room. So it starts with your self-talk, because I think a lot of times you can have a little anxiety going into a meeting or into a room and with people you don't know, and you don't know if it's going to be a friendly audience or a neutral audience. And so the first thing is even beyond your slides or your information that you're going to share, you have to be able to have the voice in your head support your goal. And if your goal is to create a great experience or to show up as confident, it's going to start mentally. So that's the first preparation. Is if you're saying to yourself, "Oh, I'm so nervous. Oh, I'm so nervous. Oh, I'm so nervous." Well, guess how you're going to show up. You're going to show up nervous. Or what if I don't have the right answers? Or don't screw up. Or what if they don't like this? All those voices have this impact on our behavior. So that would be my first tip. My second tip would be, this is what works for me, especially when I'm with a group that I don't know. I get there a little early and I try to meet people. Because once I start to meet people, I realize, oh, they're just humans. they're not out to get me. And if I can make a few connections with people, that makes a big difference. I think the third thing is then how do you open up the meeting or the event or things like that. And my preference is often to get the group talking,
Yeah.
not just giving my typical, hi, I'm Therese Miclot, I'm a, leadership consultant and blah, blah, blah. That doesn't wake up the room. And
Yes.
so I would start with a question.
Hmm.
And I might have the participants turn to each other and say, okay, we are talking about change today. And I want you to turn to your partner and talk about what are the most challenging parts of leading through change. Now I got the room buzzing. And then when I bring them back, then I can start to listen and build from their points of view. So those are a couple things I would say to put you on a path where you can be in rooms and feel more confident and ready.
All right, next up, we're in Boston, Massachusetts to chat with our guest, leadership guru, and recently published best-selling author, Charles Newcomb. Charlie, as he likes to be called, is the Vice President of Global Accounts and has just one client that takes him across the globe. That client is McDonald's, and he has over 3 decades of leadership experience and specializes in developing talent, P&L management, and creating best-in-class customer experiences that drive sales growth. His approach to leadership emphasizes strong communication, effective conflict resolution, and building exceptional interpersonal relationships. In fact, during our conversation, we dive deep between the covers of this first book that he's written, this best-selling book titled Life, Leadership, and Success, as we address the critical skills model leaders need. So it's time to have a listen to the intro track and the conversation. Again, if you're inclined, have a listen to the full video or audio after this intro.
Thank you.
Let's transfer a little bit into the book, although much of what we've spoken about is already in the book. But the book, after 33 years of leadership, maybe more now, what was the inspiration? Why write the book?
It was something I always wanted to do. I've been blessed with some great training. McDonald's invested a lot of money. They paid for me to take a 1 minute manager presentation. Ken Blanchard wrote the 1 minute manager. They paid for me to take a seminar from Stephen Covey, and a lot of those discussion points for both Stephen Covey's presentation and Ken Blanchard really struck a chord. And I live those. I still live those learnings to today. A good example of that is, Ken Blanchard talked about, he's famous for the 1 minute manager, and always, coaching, giving feedback, the 1 minute praise. I kind of came up with a phrase on my own. I called it praise in public, criticize in private. It's kind of one of those things that I live by. People don't want to hear you criticizing about someone else, because then they think, what do you do when they're not looking?
Yeah.
But anyway, Ken Blanchard was really good about, giving constant coaching. And at the same time, he talked about goal setting. Make sure that they're realistic. They talk about the SMART goals: specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, time frame. And I'm kind of rambling on a little bit, but I'm pretty passionate about this. And a lot of times what you see managers do is they'll give you their goals. Let's say they'll give you your new goals on January 1st. Then all of a sudden your 6-month performance review comes up, and come the end of June, and you haven't been given any updates on where you are in your goals. And all of a sudden, your boss comes up to you and says, "Hey, Charlie, I've talked to you about, you need to improve profitability or your labor cost on your shifts."
All right, now on to Denver, Colorado. We're going to be chatting with Julie Holunga, founder of Chinook Executive Solutions. So Julie is a leadership trainer an executive coach, and enjoys developing professionals to amplify their influence as well as their impact. So she works with attorneys, with CPAs, with business leaders who have an expertise in their careers. And in particular, she works with female professionals. So, team, you'll hear Julie and I discuss how she assists her clients excel in their careers with her proven communication strategies, honing their leadership skills, building increased visibility, as well as heightened confidence. Julie works very hard with highly driven teams to instill her methodology, which is the trusted voice paradigm. Almost mix that up then, the trusted voice paradigm. And it helps develop collaborative patterns that really deliver value. So here's the track from our discussion way back in July. I read somewhere that you said you're on a mission and you want to rid the world of lazy leadership. So what does that mean to you? Lazy leadership?
Well, lazy leadership.
I knew a few.
Yeah. Yes. So I think we've all had moments where we have practiced lazy leadership. And typically where I see it happen is when people are stressed, when they are overworked or overwhelmed in some way, when there's a lot of pressure on them, and they tend to be reactive. And we've all, and when I'm in a room full of people, I always ask them certain questions. And there's always a couple people who don't raise their hands when I say, like, have you ever been stressed? Have you ever behaved reactively? And I always say, thank you, and for your honesty, and everyone else, it's okay. I know you're lying, but it's okay. We'll let it pass for now, because we've all been in these situations, right? Whether it's at work, whether it's with family. When our kids were teenagers, I had examples coming out of my ears of all the times that I was reactive because, my family knew which buttons to push that would set me off. I like to say it wasn't intentional, but so when I think about lazy leadership, for instance, it's not giving someone feedback that they need to hear because it's uncomfortable for you, right? I don't want to tell Wayne that he's underperforming, or that email he sent was not accurate, or that he isn't meeting expectations, because it's uncomfortable for me.
Yeah.
That's lazy leadership.
Right.
And what I look at the flip side, which is deliberate leadership, is taking the time and the effort and slowing down for even a second to say, Wayne needs to hear this feedback, and it's going to help him grow. And it's going to make my life easier, by the way. If people can think that way, then they are able to be proactive instead of reactive. And it really does help.
Right.
I have people telling me all the time, oh, I thought this was going to be so much harder than it actually was.
All right. Well, that rounds out our first trio. And as always, at the end of this quarter, before we jump headlong into the next guest block that you can see on the screen, we're going to pause here for a short commercial break. Yes, you heard me right. Look, did you know that Coaching for Companies offers small business consulting across various industrial sectors, most specifically engineering, manufacturing, and construction, and we leverage our proven 4X growth formula to assist company leaders identify the gaps and put strategies in place that help their business performance to explode. Head over to our website, complete the free business health check. You don't have to even leave an email address. It's entirely free. But if you do have the desire, you can contact us for a no obligation chat, and our team will be more than happy to support you along the way. That's Coaching for Companies, and that's the number 4, coaching number 4 companies.com. All right, all no spaces, coachingforcompanies.com. All right, so we're back and we're moving on to the next 3 guests that you can see on the screen to show us towards, or take us towards, the end of July and into August this year. So Yosi Yosi Kossowsky, I didn't say that correctly, I apologize again, Yosi, Ashley Campos, Charles Spinosa, three incredible guests again. Starting with episode 174 with Yosi, and we journeyed to New York, New York, New York. So we're in the Big Apple and connected with Yosi, who's an executive coach and a seasoned business leader who has a wealth of experience in the corporate world, over 30 years, in fact, in the industry, as well as 15 years as a executive team facilitator and coach. And he really has developed a unique blend of practical business acumen as well as coaching experience that he brings to his clients. So as a business leader, Yosi has held leadership roles in startups, Fortune 100 companies, and across a variety of industries, including engineering, technical services, sales, HR, and operations. He uses this valuable experience and inside perspective to support individuals, leaders, teams, as well as organizations through their change. A really insightful conversation. So check out the promo chat and then have a listen to the full episode.
That was the real challenge. And so that led me to recognize that these, what were called soft skills, but I think of now as the hard skills, weren't going to be easily doable just by thinking about them or reading about them. And that led me to study emotional wellness therapy, which then led me to study neuroscience therapy. And I was doing that while in my engineering role. And that was the underpinnings that helped me understand emotions, feeling them, experiencing them. What is the process of where our emotions, our actions, our reactions are coming from? What is the role where our thoughts and the belief systems that we have and the value systems we have play a role in how we see, understand, make sense of the world, navigate experiences. And in the neuroscience piece, really understanding what is the different parts of the brain that play a role in our emotions, in our thinking, how do those two parts of our brain play together? What is the role of the different chemicals that, we hear about, dopamine or serotonin or cortisol, et cetera? And what are those roles that those play on our behaviors as well? And as I was really learning this, it kind of became clear why this is so hard to translate from a book into practical, usable knowledge. And so I got my first coaching certification in 2012, not to be a coach, not to think that was going to be a job, but rather to help me bring these skills into the workplace in a more effective way as a leader.
All right. Well, from Yosi in New York, we head to Virginia, and we're catching up with company founder and CEO, Ashley Campos. Ashley is described as a fast-moving entrepreneur. She's the mum of three and the force behind two virtual assistant outsourcing companies, Falcon Virtual and Global Connect Solutions, as well as the co-founder of the logistics firm Delivered. It's not spelled as the full word, it's an abbreviated Delivered. But Ashley has 15 years experience, or more than 15 years now, experience in restaurants as well as logistics, and she's obsessed with making work better through smarter systems, stronger teams, and more meaningful connections. Whether Ashley's solving delivery challenges or helping founders to scale with virtual talent, she brings that clarity and energy and just the right amount of chaos. I like that. Ashley specializes in building high-performing remote teams and crafting strategic solutions that help businesses scale, streamline operations, and enhance efficiency. As with all of our episodes, these are educational opportunities for me as they are for you. So check out this promo track and then do yourself a favor, listen to the full episode. What often trips people up, I've found, is that transition into becoming a leader. Did you have any challenges yourself as you started your entrepreneurial journey on how to lead people?
Yes, I think that I remember the first time when I got promoted at my first job into being a leader, I had to make a transition from being a friend to being her boss, or a colleague, but a friend, and to being her boss. And that was really difficult. And there were a lot of challenges along the way. And I think what I learned then that I've taken into today is just being really transparent and really honest when you give feedback, because if you're consistent with that, then people understand that when you have to give them something that they might not want to hear, that you're doing it from a place of care versus just from a place of maybe badgering or something, from a negative space. So I really did take that and hold on to it today. It's one of my principles of just always being honest and giving hard feedback, even when you don't want to, or you don't want, or the other person doesn't want to hear it.
Right. Feedback's such an important topic. We'll probably dive into that a little bit deeper as we go through today's conversation, but such an important topic. How much does your leadership style come out of or lend itself to being a mother?
I think that I don't know what influenced what. I would say probably my leadership style probably influences me being a mom, because some people would be like, oh, you treat your kids, they're all doing stuff around the house like little employees, of the household, which they kind of are. But um, I'm super transparent with my kids too, and I kind of like to set them up for success and then let them go, let them fail a little bit. I also think that if you're not failing with what you're doing, you might not be trying hard enough. But just kind of supporting them along that journey of growing up, or, in the workplace, of growing into a better person in your current position. So I'd say they're pretty overlapping.
Well, rounding out our second group, as well as taking us into the halfway mark, is our second guest from the quarter, actually, from New York, management consultant Charles Spinosa. Charles is a group director in Vision Consulting and leads work on strategic innovation programs to correct cross-boundary coordination problems and leadership coaching. He's also developed and deployed value conflict resolution methodologies for innovation, enriched and deployed commitment management methodologies as well, and new methodology for leading knowledge workers. Before management consulting, Charles taught English literature as well as philosophy, publishing widely in both fields, and he earned his PhD from Berkeley. But during the last several decades, Charles has co-authored numerous books, written countless academic papers, and much of our conversation explores the more recently released book titled Leadership as a Masterpiece Creation: What Business Leaders Can Learn from the Humanities About Moral Risk-Taking. Actually, really enjoyed this conversation. Very philosophical. The book is very challenging, and stretches your mind around the traditional leadership approach. So do yourself a favor, find a copy of that book if you haven't already. But have a listen now to the intro track, the promo track, and I would highly recommend have a full listen to this episode again to make sure you can digest all of the insights that we discussed.
I started out not as a management consultant, but as actually a professor of English literature. I taught Shakespeare for some years at Miami University in Ohio. And then I started publishing in philosophy, and I ended my academic career as a philosopher. In both those worlds, both those disciplines, I was always interested in how human beings transform themselves, how we, in a certain sense, become who we are. We're not really ourselves, and how we're constantly becoming. I talked about how Shakespeare did that when I was teaching Shakespeare. I spoke about how Heidegger and Kierkegaard and Nietzsche got us doing that when I did philosophy. I wrote my first book in 1997 with a philosopher and with a management consultant on what innovation in business looked like from a philosopher's perspective, and that led me into management consulting. I started at management consulting, interested in how people innovate and interested in helping leaders find their defining passion. And my original view was if you found your defining passion, the big consulting triumph was with Fernando. We were consulting with Lorenzo Zambrano, the CEO of Cemex, which at that time was a very small cement company. It's become the third or second largest in the world. His defining passion was to bring to Mexico first world transparency in debt and raising debt and so forth. And it was amazing because he had that passion. He could have more sophisticated strategies and he could take harder hits than other people. I won't go through the story, but when you have a defining passion, you get challenged in that defining passion. He was challenged in a very hard way and was able to see his way through it. In any case, that's how it started out. And I started working that way and helping people innovate. But as I worked more and more with leaders, I discovered about 10 years ago that leaders really have a sense.
Before we jump in again, time for another short commercial. You know, at Coaching for Companies, we offer 3 core services. You probably know that I've mentioned it multiple times. In the last short commercial in this episode, we spoke about small businesses and how we support them in the industrial sector, in particular through performance and growth consultation services. Well, another pillar that we offer is the ET development division. Now, we quite often find that this becomes a little bit of a tag affair where we go there and we start working with companies as a consulting organization, but we identify, or the team identifies that the senior executives also would benefit from some targeted development, and this is where Pillar 2 comes in. We have 2 groups, if you like, or 2 aspects of this particular pillar, the ET development division. The first is called the ET project. Now, in that sits 4 free services. One of those free services is this weekly podcast. The other 3 are our monthly live broadcast and our quarterly masterclasses, 90-minute masterclasses, as well as our quarterly Ultimate Challenge multi-day, or 90 minutes across multiple days challenges. And these are where we address business cases and we tackle a business or leadership challenge. So that's under the ET project, those 4 services. Then we also have the ET Academy. Now, the ET Academy is where we offer our premium products for development. These are both B2B and B2C. They're the formal premium side of our executive skills development. So this is where we offer short form virtual masterminds. We have a tiered stack of 4 flagship longer duration development programs running anywhere between 3 days to 12 months, plus the pinnacle of our academy, the elite destination masterminds that are conducted 3 times a year in a different exotic location each of those times. Now, the good news, or the big news, is that we're currently working hard we're hoping mid-November launch of a new program. It's called the Future Proof Executive. It contains 15 targeted short-form self-study modules, 4 topics per module. If you'd like to learn more about it, then you can visit our website, coachingforcompanies.com. You'll probably find that we only have a coming soon page, but that will give you the opportunity to go on the wait list. And once you're on the wait list, we'll be feeding you information each week about this particular program. So that's it for the ET development pillar or section of our business. 2 different areas: ET project, which has those 4 services, the podcast, the live, the masterclass, and the challenge. And then we have our premium products, the new program we're working on, which is called the Future Proof Executive. We have our virtual masterminds. We have 5 of those. We have a transformational talent development tiered program, which is 4 different modules stretching from 3 days for the first one through 12 months. And then we have our pinnacle destination masterminds, 3 days away somewhere around the world at an exotic location with hand-picked participants. So this is by invite. You can apply, but you'll be interviewed, and we hand select. More on that later if you want, but just to fill you in. All right, so let's get back to where we are with our 3rd group and 3 more very interesting leaders joining us: Regina Huber, Andrew Davies, and Sarena Diamond. Let's start with Regina in episode 178. All right. Regina is in Lyon in France, and she's a transformational leadership coach. She's also an international inspirational speaker and an author. And as founder and CEO of the coaching, speaking, training business called Transform Your Performance, Regina drives bold, heart-centered leadership. And through her holistic coaching approach, she helps clients become thriving leaders by up-leveling their leadership of self and others to reach their next career goal and team-building results. So Regina's eclectic, multicultural background, which is based on living and working on 5 continents, where she started in Germany, and includes leadership roles at Boston Consulting Group, working across Europe, South America, and the US. She also has owned businesses in Argentina, Brazil, and the US. So I can tell you from my own experience, my own travels, my own business background, that just that introduction alone ensures that Regina truly has a very grounded understanding of what it takes to live and do business and to lead in a multicultural environment. If you have an interest in working internationally and experiencing everything that has to offer, then I highly recommend that you check out this intro video and audio, as well as go back and listen to the full track. So with that, have a listen. I have to ask you to list, if you can, just very quickly, how many different cities have you lived in? Because it's quite extraordinary.
You're right. I will answer that question in just a second, but I did want to add something that I think is very important. So liberation and freedom is also about responsibility in a sense of the ability to respond, right? That's what responsibility means. And also in the sense of we are creating our own reality. So
yes,
that responsibility, that gives us that freedom in the end, right? But as long as we don't assume responsibility, we are not free because we are victims of circumstances. So I just quickly wanted to add that with your permission.
Absolutely fine. And we could talk for the whole conversation around that topic, because responsibility, right, accountability, commitment are all big topics that we talk about a lot as well. Right. So you have the choice, right? And you make a choice for every situation you find yourself in. And if you take responsibility, you'll make a choice in a different way than if you play the victim. And I know you talk about that in your book as well.
Right. So about the city, so I lived, of course, in our little village, which I just came back from. I just was visiting family. It originally had 10 houses when I grew up there. Now it's grown a bit. But so the first city I moved to at 19 was Munich. I stayed there about 7 years. What's interesting is that most of my stays have, for the longest time, were either 7 years or 3.5 years. So it's interesting. from there, I moved to Madrid, stayed there another 7 years. Then I went to Sao Paulo for a shorter period of time, about a half year at the time, still with the Boston Consulting Group that I worked at that time. Helped open offices in Lisbon and Sao Paulo for the Boston Consulting Group. So I traveled to Lisbon a lot while I lived in Madrid, weekly for years, actually. Then, let me think, I moved back to Munich. From there, I moved to Buenos Aires, Argentina. The crisis hit, so the company I was working for as an external consultant could no longer pay me. It was a startup. And that's when BCG hired me back for their San Francisco office. I stayed there also 3.5 years. Then I moved back to Buenos Aires, opened my own bed and breakfast there. So that's my first own business. Then I moved to Rio de Janeiro and also opened a business. And from there to New York City. I also have lived and still have my residence in Miami and Miami Beach, Florida. And now I split my time between Lyon, France and Miami. And, it's just been amazing.
Right now, we're chatting with Andrew Davies, and Andrew is in Philadelphia. Anyone that's a Rocky fan like myself immediately pictures the steps in Philadelphia and Rocky sprinting up them. I did ask Andrew if he'd attempted it, but I'm not sure what he answered me. Yeah, but Andrew is an experienced improviser as well as a teacher, and he's a gentleman to boot. He's skilled in leadership, comedy, and theatre, and he's used that to bring about this business. He's certified in facilitation as well as leadership and teaching. So Andrew's on a mission to transform the corporate world with the magic of improv. So if you've never used improv, this would be a great episode to check out. He uses the skills that he's acquired to help teams ditch the snooze fest meetings and embrace creativity and collaboration instead, right? So imagine a workplace where brainstorming feels like fun instead of a chore. Yeah, that's what we're talking about here. You'll also hear us get into the nitty-gritty of how you don't have to be the funniest person in the room to rock at improv. It's all about being present and supportive. Another great discussion, another great leader and guest for the show. So check it out and have a listen. Two of the great improv artists that influenced me in any way. And I don't know if you would say they're really titled as improv, but Robin Williams and Billy Crystal sort of had this essence, if you like, for improv that struck me. Any others other than Monty Python for you?
Yeah, I mean, Whose Line Is It Anyway? Both the British and American shows was really my introduction to improv. And they play, what I now know is short form improv, which are kind of shorter games. But all of the team there, I mean, like Colin Mockery and Ryan Stiles and Wayne Brady, and they're just unbelievably thoughtful, in the moment, playful, doing characters, voices, songs, just really eye-opening and brilliant, and remain to this day, kind of inspiring in that work. And then as I studied improv and got deeper into this world, learned about what we call long form improv, which not everybody gets to see, which is where you take a word and make up a whole show. And so there's some brilliant masters of that. TJ and Dave are sort of personal icons who people might recognize, but probably don't know by name. But they have a two-man show they've been doing for 20 years that's unbelievable and amazing.
Maybe we should start by defining what do we mean by improv?
Yeah. Yeah. So for me, there's improv in a lot of different forms, right? But the improv that I studied is really improvisational comedy and improvisational theater. So it's really about building scenes and stories and telling stories that are fully improvised, usually with suggestions, but not always. So I think that's really the core of it for me. And then, when you take it out of the performance space, when I'm bring it into organizations, to companies, it's both the performance side of improv, but also the skills that are a part of that are applicable all the time. Listening skills, collaboration skills, all those things that are so important.
All right. Well, we've reached our final guest in this third grouping, and we're heading this time to Somers in New York, which is sitting, and we're sitting down, I shouldn't say which is sitting, but we're sitting down with a powerhouse leader who has seamlessly transitioned from the corporate elite to the entrepreneurial world. We're talking my language now. The guest name, Sarena Diamond. Sarena has a career that spans decades, working with iconic companies like IBM, Accenture, PepsiCo, and she's journeyed through resilience, reinvention, and developed a relentless empowerment. On paper, her career reads like a corporate dream, spearheading transformation and driving growth in Fortune 500 giants. But it was a pivotal moment that reshaped her path, leading her to step into consulting, where she quickly made her mark, guiding companies from 100 million to 1 billion in revenue. What sets Sarena apart? Well, her uncanny ability to adapt, innovate, and thrive, even in the face of uncertainty. Have a listen to this track. I'm sure you're going to learn a lot from Sarena. It was a great conversation, as they all are, and I'm sure you're starting to understand that by now. Have a listen. Speak about the technology companies, and at least I have the vision that they're more innovative, they're more creative as part of their culture. There's many very traditional industrialized companies out there who are less agile and flexible in that way. And I think many of those leaders still struggle with that concept of letting go and not being the smartest leader in the room or smartest person in the room, and bringing in that innovation for whatever reason, whether it's fear of the unknown, fear of losing their power, whatever. But I imagine that is a large part of the reason why many of these change initiatives fail, right, or don't succeed to the level.
100%. You know what I do? I have a lot of grace for leaders today, especially leaders that grew up and learned in a different mode, right? There's that old poem that I had in my house for decades, that children learn what they live. Well, leaders learn what they experience as well. And so often the leaders before them only had one style, right? And that style is what people experience. So you either did exactly what your leaders that you saw did and grew up through that, or you completely abandoned it, saw it as toxic or something. But it's hard. And what I'm seeing is the more leaders that are investing in themselves, in their own leadership development, as well as developing the next level. I've had 2 clients in the 3.5 years where I was kind of taken aback at what I was brought in to do. I was standing up a function, an operational function, and streamlining some processes. But more importantly, I was actually mentoring the leader that was going to take on that role. And at first, when I took it, I was in the back of my head, certainly not to them, but I was a little concerned that the senior leader, the more senior leader that knew who the person was going to be, wasn't vested. They weren't really dedicating themselves to growing that person. They were offloading it to me. But what I figured out pretty quickly is that wasn't it at all. They recognized that they didn't have the skills in their own toolbox to be able to develop the leader that human needed to be. And I, in hindsight, gave them a ton of credit for saying that and saying, you know what, I'll learn alongside, but I don't have the skills to teach them what they need to know.
It's commercial time once again, third and final time. You've heard me introduce already 2 of the 3 service pillars our small business consulting, and our executive development. Our third area of focus is coaching. This is where it started. And whether we're coaching for business, whether we're coaching executives about careers or leadership, whether we're working with a company and coaching a team coaching, or we're running one of our group coaching programs, we've really got you covered in every aspect of coaching. Now, you can rest assured that the coaches that we have engaged with here at Coaching for Companies are seasoned professionals. They've run their own companies. They've worked with advisors or worked with and as advisors. They've also mentored executives at all levels, and they've coached extensively across the world. We also ensure that we keep you current by experiencing the latest technology through our tripod coaching packages. So when you sign up with us, you're given access to your own AI coach, if you choose, as well as a human coach like myself, right? And both are then combined with our coaching management platform, where you as the client have direct access to your notes, the tools, the templates, the action plans, and so forth. It really does ensure that we keep you, the client, our counterpart, coaching counterpart, as our center of focus and attention. So if you're interested, why not go over to our website, coachingforcompanies.com. That's the number 4, Coaching for Companies, all one word.com. And you can connect, or you can read a lot of information, but you can connect with us from that website if you so choose. All right, that was the last commercial, I promise. Let's jump back into the final quarter for quarter 3 and the final block or the final group for quarter 3 and wrap up this session. So hopefully you can sense the enormous value on offer here as we work our way through these amazing leaders. My hope is that these conversations bring you equal enjoyment and learning as they do myself. I know my knowledge continues to grow exponentially as a result of our weekly conversations. And with that, let's jump into the final 4 guests, if you remember, for this final block. In order of appearance, Jim Carlough, Amy Long, Antoni Lacinai, and Lynn Colepaugh. So our 10th guest in this quarter is located in Dallas, Texas, and it's none other than Jim Carlough. Jim has, I think it was 3 decades of leadership experience, and has become recognized in the world of business strategy and leadership development, as well as organizational transformation. And as an author, a professional speaker, and a leadership mentor, he draws from a vast career helping healthcare organizations achieve measurable growth, as well as revitalize underperformance and create cultures that are grounded in excellence and resilience. So Jim's career trajectory showcases a consistent thread of performance-driven outcomes rooted in people-focused strategies, and his ability to navigate complex business challenges while building high-performance teams has really earned him a reputation as a transformative leader. Check out this incredible discussion and the promo teaser, and then have a listen once again to the full episode. That was episode 182. And I just realized that I didn't bring up Jim's smiling face, so apologies for that. I'll leave that up there for a little bit longer.
And so I wanted to make sure that in all of the organizations that I've led, that people understand some things that are really important for them to be able to look out for, and it's not just managing by the numbers in sales. It's
Right.
managing by the numbers and setting the expectation, but setting kind of the framework for which to work in.
Mm.
And I'll give you an example. My number one pillar that I say is non-negotiable is integrity.
Mhm.
And I learned integrity, that pillar, there's a point in time in my life where I remember it because it hit me like a baseball bat upside the head. But I had just won a political election in the city I grew up in. I was 22 years old and I ran for city council and I won. And a couple weeks later, I mean, we're talking November of 1983, that's a long time ago.
Yeah.
And the city administrator asked to see me. So I went in to meet with him. He congratulated me and he told me he was happy that I won because I was a smart young guy and he wanted to give me some advice. Or actually, he asked me if I would do him a favor. And I said, sure, what is it? And he said, every night when you lay down to go to sleep and you put your head on the pillow, I want you to ask yourself one question. And that question is, did I do anything today for my own personal benefit that was at the expense of another individual, group of individuals, or organization? And he said, if you say yes to that question, you need to do two things right away. Figure out how to unwind it if you can, and also two, never do it again.
Hmm.
I have not only led my life by that, I ask myself that question every night before I go to bed to this day. And I teach that to the salespeople that I work with because nothing starts until you establish credibility and trust.
Mhm.
And whether you're a CEO or a salesperson, you have to establish that level of trust before anyone's going to buy something from you. And if you walk in and just start promoting the goods and services that you have or whatever you're selling without first listening, without first establishing a rapport and getting to know the person you're dealing with and working with, you're not going to be successful at anything. And that's the very first thing I teach them. And
Yeah.
it's funny because it follows through. So integrity is not just dealing with the customer too. I want integrity with what they put into Salesforce. I want integrity in the pipeline that they're forecasting, right? It transcends everything that salesperson deals with. And they'll be a lot more successful if they can establish that level of trust.
All right. Let's move into our next guest, who's a leadership coach and founder of Blue by Amy, Amy Long. Blue by Amy is a boutique coaching business for leaders committed to leading with precision to achieve their ultimate goal. And through Amy's signature approach, she helps her clients to identify the unique leadership styles and create actionable steps towards leading at the highest level. So with a background as an attorney and a corporate leader, Amy brings a wealth of experience in managing teams, solving complex problems, and leading with empathy and assertiveness. She also has international experience, having spent time in Switzerland and China, as well as France. And it's really helped shape her adaptable and open-minded approach to coaching. She's really passionate about helping her clients lead intentionally. And she simplifies the challenges that they're facing and inspires progress through her philosophy of baby bird steps. You'll hear us talking about that in the episode. So have a listen to this track and then dive deeper into the whole episode. I'm sure you're going to find it fascinating, really important conversation. Another thing I heard somewhere or read somewhere, you talk about baby bird steps. I love that expression. Where does that phrase come from? And is it part of this journey that you're experiencing at the moment?
Yes. So baby bird steps, I coined that really off the cuff. One of the last corporate worlds I was in, we
Right.
were building a big team and I was in charge of a department and there was so much to do
Okay.
that there was a lot of excitement and there was a lot of possibilities.
Mm.
And every day I would hear people wanting to be excited, doing these steps. And I would say, no, we need to slow down because we want to maintain the momentum and we have a lot to do. And I just off the cuff said, we're going to take baby bird steps because everyone has heard the term baby steps.
Yes.
And I don't discredit baby steps, but baby steps is almost something that you hear and you're like, yeah, I've heard
Yeah.
that before. So it really doesn't stop you in your tracks anymore. But baby bird steps, well, what's that? That's new. And so it's very tiny and it's meant to really stop you in your tracks and say, listen, if we can break things down into their smallest parts,
Mm.
then we can maintain our energy, we can maintain our momentum, we can maintain our focus, and then we can keep the steam rolling, so to speak.
Right, right. Well, that's a nice segue into the book. So let's sort of pivot a little bit and move into the book. Why now with the book? What was the drive behind writing the book and releasing it at this moment?
Well, I always wanted to write a book, and then I came to have the opportunity. I heard about writing a book, and I decided I want to tell my stories. I want to share what I know. And this is the perfect time right now on my journey building this business for me to put some of my thoughts down to paper and to be able to share what I consider are, you could also say, leadership cornerstones throughout the
Right.
book.
Yeah. Insights. So
Insights.
I've been following you on LinkedIn for a while, and I see that you've been releasing different insights over the course since the book's been released, I guess. And yeah, very, very nice to read. Nice tips, nice reminders. So again, the title of the book is The Subtle Art of Leadership. It has a longer subtitle, but The Subtle Art of Leadership. It's not loud, not flashy, is the message that I took from it. So, what inspired that frame for the book?
Well, I think that when I looked at everything that I put into the book, the core word there is subtle. It's not just leadership, but that core word of subtle and that it's an art. So looking at things on being decisive, I'm very big on forward thinking and being intentional, and those go into there's an art to it. This is not just something random. And then there's something subtle to it. It's like we mentioned, it's not loud and it's not meant to, just totally captivate and hit someone over the head. It's something more subtle because it's small things. It's back even to the baby bird steps.
All right. Well, our next guest is in Stockholm, in Sweden, and we're going to be talking or chatting with the acclaimed international keynote speaker and expert in workplace communication, Antoni Lacinai. Antoni was named Finland's 2022 International Speaker of the Year, and in 2019 he placed third in the Swedish Championship of Storytelling. He also ranks among Sweden's most popular speakers, and his TEDx talk has received over 300,000 views, proving his broad appeal. So besides speaking, Antoni is an illustrator, a songwriter, and a business strategist, which makes him a very interesting guy to speak with. His focus areas include conscious leadership, customer focus, and employee engagement. And he blends creativity with practical insights as a keynote speaker, an author, and executive coach. He tackles workplace communication head on, and he equips leaders and teams with a powerful communication blueprint. For our penultimate time this quarter, please have a listen to our intro promo track. And then, as always, have a listen to the full episode once again. As the moderator, how can you inspire action to take away out of the event? I mean, it sounds like a particularly challenging task for a moderator.
Are you meaning what's going to happen after the event, or?
Yes. Yeah. So,
okay.
You know, as we spoke, recency or the end of an event is very important. If you want people to take action, you need to help them do something. As the moderator, that sounds like a challenge.
Well, you can do everything. You can tee up, but you cannot do it for them. It's really not your responsibility. What you can do is to make sure that you do everything you can to make the possibilities happen, at least. For instance, finding out if there's time at the end. I want to again have a beehive or something saying, what did you take out of this session? This day, for instance. What is the most important thing that you will do from when you come back to work? If we have that as a context, I can do. For each speaker, I can also ask some generic questions like, if you want to summarize this in the 3 main takeaways, what is it? If you want to give people homework, like one thing that they should do after this, what is it? So I can help them by doing that, but I can't do the work for them. They have to still do it themselves. And sometimes it's really easy to take on too much responsibility of this. It's not your job. You've done your job. You just have to do it so good that at least there's a chance for them to do something afterwards. And if this is like an internal event, let's say this one company having their own kickoff, well, it's up to them then. It's up to the leaders in that organization to go forward, build momentum, use the day as a kickoff for something else coming up. If they don't, then it's really up to them. If it's an open conference, then of course it's much harder because you have perhaps 20, 30, 200 different organizations in that event, and then of course you can't do it, but you can still do what you can. Again, back to that, what is it that you can do when you go back home? That's a question you can always ask to make them understand that there is something to be done with this. Otherwise, it was just a waste of time, or nice to have and not need to have. Yeah.
All right. Well, our final guest for the quarter and our most recent guest, she was on the show last week, in fact, and it saw us head over to Eastern Canada and the province of New Brunswick. And who was it? Of course, Lynn Colepaugh, founder and CEO of Cyber PR Army Solutions. They're a digital strategy studio, and they're built on the belief that marketing isn't about noise. It's about continuity. It's about memory and systems that actually serve the humans that are running them. As Lynn says, at Cyber PR, they help organizations across Canada and the world demystify the digital maze. For me, this was an important conversation because the digital maze is something that I experience on a daily basis. So in her case, from CEO, automation, to social media strategy, content creation, and full platform transitions, their work turns scattered tech stacks and marketing headaches into clarity, structure, and measurable growth. And over the years, they've partnered with clients in the arts and culture area, in HR, in construction, in medical, as well as food and beverage, building campaigns along the way and digital ecosystems that last. So with that, have a listen to this final promo clip, and then if you so desire, jump across and look at the episode one more time. You're talking, I guess, back in the 1990s, thereabouts, with the early days, and now 20, 30 years on, how much has the digital marketing side of this whole world shifted in that period?
It's so fascinating because even with technology and how it's pacing today, and it's turning over so quick, There are jobs today that when I was in university, I took like computer information systems and like physics and building the computers, but the main programming language was a language called Turbo Pascal, which is like doesn't even exist anymore. And that was the extent of it, right? That was everything. And now there are not just platforms for social connection, but there are complete strategies to kind of cut through all that noise to connect with people. And it's the digital spaces are so crowded that it's not about buying ads on YouTube or buying ads on Facebook. You have to be so strategic or the money just funnels out of your bank account. And that's what I find right now. Like if you placed an ad in a newspaper, you knew there were eyes on it because they had so many subscriptions and you knew they were your target. And the radio stations, if you advertised on country radio, you knew that it was country. Now you put an ad on Facebook, you don't even really know who's seeing it. You've got to be so specific and really think about it. Again, who are your competitors and who are your customers? Who are your real customers versus who do you idealize your customers to be? Like, do they drink Mountain Dew? Do they drink coffee? Do they drink tea? Like little things like that. So I find the the digital space is just so thick and dense and heavy. It's really difficult to stand out, but you can't ignore it either because everyone's on it. We are on our phones too much during the day, and you need to carve out that 1% for yourself and your company to be present in that space.
All right. Well, that is a wrap on our guest for this quarter. But as always, we have another wealth of leadership experience, insights, and learning heading your way in quarter 4 of 2025. And to kick off quarter 4, we're diving into the unique leadership style of a global leader, Willy Kuhner, from one of the world's largest tech giants, Google. It's a conversation you all will want to hear. And as exciting as these podcast episodes are, you know that we also run plenty of other events in each quarter. In fact, just last Friday, 26th of September, we held our September 90-minute masterclass where we continued unpacking this highly relevant and intriguing look into future-proofing. This time, we looked at the perspective from the organizational viewpoint. So moving forward in October, we have coming up, I think it's our 4-day ultimate challenge, and we're going to be, the subject title is Transform into a Dynamic Sales Leader. It's one of my favorite of our 4 challenges that we run each year. Now, this is followed in November by the launch of our new 15-module, we hope, fingers crossed, 15-module future-proofing executive program. And then, of course, we round out the season and say farewell to 2025 with the December masterclass, the next masterclass, it's titled Preparing for the Longevity Dividend, talking about talent systems for a workforce that works now well into their 90s and as we progress into the 80s. So in parallel, we run our virtual masterminds, our transformational talent development programs, our destination masterminds. All in all, it's a full lineup to warm, guide, and develop our clients. That's you, by the way. So hopefully you enjoy the journey all the way along, whether you're tuning into this podcast, whether you listen to the live, whether you're attending the masterclass, you're working through the challenge, whether you're doing the masterminds, you're doing one of our tiered programs, you're attending a destination mastermind or a soon-to-be future-proof executive program, whatever it is that you're engaged in with us, we truly hope you enjoy. So with that, team, we've reached the end of this short recap. Hopefully this short review has triggered some fond memories and perhaps flagged an episode or two that you'd like to go back and listen to for a second time. If so, all the best. Stay safe, stay healthy, and bye for now.
So what are you waiting for? Hit the subscribe button below and click on the bell icon so I can pop up in your feed occasionally with a great tip for your ultimate growth.